Although the Allies dreaded the ferocious firing speed of German machine guns during World War II, the Germans equally feared the devastating might of the M2 Browning and its .50 BMG round. Nicknames like Meat Chopper and Kraut weren't earned lightly after all, yet the true tale runs deeper and far more horrifying, as you might expect from a hit by such ammunition. Let's rewind to uncover the origins and development of what became the M2. World War I highlighted the critical role of powerful machine guns. Back then, though, these weapons typically used the same bullets as standard rifles. As innovations like early armoured aircraft and tanks appeared on the scene, it became clear that something packing a bigger wallop was essential. General John Pershing pushed for a fresh machine gun capable of shredding those threats far better than the existing .30 caliber ones. That challenge landed with John Browning, the renowned American firearms innovator. He received specs for a gun that could launch a half-inch projectile at speeds exceeding 2,700 feet per second, a huge leap from his prior creations. Browning adapted his proven M1917.30 caliber water-cooled machine gun, enlarging it to handle a beefier cartridge. This new round was essentially an upsized .30-06, designed rimless for reliable feeding and drawing cues from the seized German 13.2 by 92 mm anti-tank rifle ammo. The result? The .50 BMG, or 12.7 by 99 mm. Unbeknownst to them, they'd forged one of the battlefield's most potent cartridges, primed for heavy action ahead. Following iterations, the initial prototype underwent trials and rolled into production as the M1921, a water-cooled heavy hitter mainly aimed at anti-aircraft duties. Tests explored other applications, but early results were underwhelming. It proved too cumbersome for foot soldiers at around 120 pounds for the water-cooled variant or 84 pounds for the air-cooled one, with the tripod tacking on another 44 pounds. A full setup tipped the scales at 130 to 170 pounds, plus hefty ammo loads dimming its prospects. The kickback was fierce too, hampering precision. Smaller planes of the era couldn't accommodate it well, and on vehicles in compact turrets, left-side feeding caused headaches. Initially, its sole niche was coastal anti-aircraft defence, but no one foresaw the dramatic shifts ahead. John Browning died in 1926, yet his team pressed on, refining the design. They modified internals for easy switching between left and right-side feeding via a swappable top cover. A versatile receiver emerged, allowing swaps between water-cooled barrels with jackets, heavy air-cooled ones, or lighter air-cooled options for planes. This flexibility sparked real potential, and with tweaks it earned the name M2 Browning machine gun. Meanwhile, other countries shifted to bulkier arms like 20mm or 30mm cannons. The US, however, trusted the .50 cal's speed and versatility to keep it relevant. Production continued, and its true prowess would soon shine in the escalating World War. The M2 evolved into the fabled Mar-Deuce .50 caliber, or simply the .50 as troops nicknamed it. Mar-Deuce, for the record, mashed mother and deuce, slang for two, evoking something like the ultimate machine gun mum, and it lived up to the hype. When World War II erupted, America already deployed M2s across roles, fixed on planes, anti-aircraft setups on ships, bombers and vehicles, plus tripod versions for ground troops. They tackled nearly any foe in sight. Aircraft applications dominated early, featuring lighter barrels and boosted cyclic rates from 500 to roughly 1,200 rounds per minute. That's comparable to the MG-42's pace, but optimized for brief bursts, crucial in air or AA scenarios with fleeting targets. Certain setups pushed it to extremes. Take the B-17 Flying Fortress, famous for defending against fighters. The G variant packed up to 13 M2s in dual mounts across turrets. The P-47 Thunderbolt fighter bomber sported 8 4 per wing. Meanwhile, the Douglas I-26 Invad, the B-17, elevated this setup even further, packing in as many as 18 M2s, 8 up front in the nose, 4 per wing, and a pair in the turret. Right from the early days of the conflict, the M2 outshone those lighter .30 caliber guns, striking an ideal mix of rapid fire and punch per shot. It packed plenty of power to bring down hostile fighters or bombers. Those rounds could punch straight through engine blocks, particularly the armour-piercing ones. And with multiple guns blazing together, it spelled trouble for just about anything caught in the open. US fighters strafed trains, armoured cars and even tanks with deadly results, exploiting the thinner top plating. It didn't take long before the heavy-barrelled version turned essential on nearly every tank, vehicle and mounting spot available. By 1945, production had hit millions, crowning it the most manufactured machine gun in history. The Germans found it infuriating how those American .50 cals seemed to pop up everywhere across the front lines. This turned low-level strikes from fighters or dive bombers like the Stuka into high-stakes gambles, since jeeps, half-tracks and tanks were all likely armed with one. That's why tanks positioned the M2 at the turret's rear, manned by a crewman perched on the engine deck. This allowed upward fire against aerial threats, even though the operator stayed exposed beyond the tank's armoured shell. Before diving into combat stories, let's clarify something you might have pondered. Why does the Browning's barrel recoil backward after each shot? The M2 uses short recoil operation, where the barrel and bolt lock as a single piece and shift rearward post-firing. This supports the cartridge casing amid peak chamber pressure, preventing bursts during extraction. After about 10 millimeters of travel, the barrel halts while the bolt keeps going solo to pull and toss the empty case. In the process, it loads the recoil spring, which then drives the bolt ahead to grab fresh ammo from the disintegrating belt, chamber it, and trigger the next round, cycling non-stop while the trigger stays down. Now, shifting to the German perspective, they dreaded the .50 caliber for good reasons and held it in low regard overall. The top issue was clear. US forces leaned heavily on superior firepower as their go-to strategy, leaving the Germans in awe and fear. Unlike their foes, Americans never ran short on bullets. Seemed like every vehicle or aircraft out there carried at least one hefty machine gun. Facing .50 caliber fire was a world apart from smaller rounds. It outdistanced them handily too. Compare the 8mm round from the MG-42 to a .50. The latter unleashed 5 to 10 times the energy of typical infantry arms. So, hunkered in a building? Concrete or brick barriers offered scant defence anymore. Rounds would pierce through and drop you, or a sustained burst at one point could crumble the wall or rip apart your sandbag fort. Heavily protected tanks like the Panzer IV might still take hits from .50 fire that sneaked past plating from flanks or rear, wrecking optics, tracks, or locking the turret. In the Pacific, Japan's thinly armoured tanks fell to .5s without much fight, especially during those wild banzai rushes that caught US crews off guard and prompted full auto-barrages. One debated aspect of the .50 in World War II is the rumour it got banned by the Geneva Conventions due to its brutal impact on people. That part's false, though the carnage wasn't overstated. Get struck by a .50 anywhere on your body, and you're either losing that limb, if you're lucky, or you're done for. Plenty of German troops saw it firsthand. The BMG's energy dump into flesh produced horrors too graphic for YouTube, but you can picture it. If it wrecks a wall or a melon like that, think what it does to a person. No wonder it weighed so heavily on German minds. They tweaked their approaches to neutralize US heavy MG nests, favoring snipers, tanks, or standoff barrages from mortars and guns over straight charges. Compounding matters, the Germans lacked a true equivalent. Their go-to heavy machine gun was the MG-42 or MG-34, set up on the Lafette tripod as the standard heavy mount. Although the Lafette tripod was a clever design that boosted German machine guns' precision and extended their reach significantly, the 8mm Mauser cartridge it fired lacked the devastating impact of the .50 BMG. The Germans' nearest equivalent to the M2 was their 13mm heavy machine gun, though it saw service exclusively on fighter planes. They intended to adapt seized M2s for anti-aircraft roles on U-boats during battery recharges, even manufacturing replicas of .50 BMG ammunition to support this effort, which highlights their admiration for it. Yet such applications remained uncommon. Before diving into some alarming upgrades for the M2, let's examine the various ammunition types it fires. The basic loadout featured full metal jacket ball ammo with substantial destructive power, naturally, but specialized options amplified its lethality. For starters, multiple armor-piercing variants could punch through about an inch of hardened steel. Incendiary bullets were crafted to set off combustible substances, proving highly useful against enemy planes, for instance, where they could spark fires amid leaking fuel from impacts. Armor-piercing incendiary rounds merged the capabilities of those earlier types. Then there's the armor-piercing incendiary tracer, which includes a visible trail to track shots, ideal for anti-aircraft barrages or fine-tuning fire over distances, since .50 BMG projectiles retain effectiveness beyond 2 kilometers. M2 belts typically mixed rounds with a tracer every fifth one for ground operations, whereas aircraft setups blended armor-piercing, incendiaries, and tracers tailored to strafing runs or aerial combat needs. Post-World War II innovations brought intriguing developments, such as the Rufos multi-purpose round. This integrated a tungsten armor-piercing core with a compact explosive and incendiary payload that generated shrapnel too, mimicking a 20mm shell's performance in a .50 BMG format. Another is the SLAP, or Saboted Light Armor Penetrator, akin to the oversized discarding sabot penetrators tanks employ. It deploys a compact, sub-caliber projectile from dense material like tungsten, offering superior armor defeat while excelling against lightly protected vehicles or choppers. Still, it's more common in sniper setups due to its expense for sustained bursts. Speaking of snipers, the .50 BMG's prowess so captivated the US military that they designed a dedicated rifle for it. The iconic case is Carlos Hathcock, the fabled Vietnam sniper who jury-rigged an M2 with a scope for precise, long-distance single shots where conventional rifles fell short. He notched verified kills using this modified setup. That ingenuity paved the way for the Barrett M82, an anti-materiel sniper rifle in .50 BMG that gained renown in US forces. No discussion of the .50 would be thorough without the quad .50. When a single heavy gun falls short, simply combine 4 into one mount and aim them at whatever threatens to vanish. Enter the M45 Maxon Quad Mount. Initially built for agile defense versus low-altitude planes, where .50 BMG could reliably down them, the challenge lay in the weapon's modest cyclic rate and the fleeting chance to tag speedy foes. Quadrupling it solved that, unleashing roughly 40 rounds per second. The Germans pursued a comparable idea with their quad 20mm flak guns, but theirs was a bulkier setup focused solely on air threats, unlike the lighter, more adaptable quad .50. An electric drive allowed swift panning across 360 degrees and elevation to 90 degrees for rapid target acquisition. It stood alone on the ground or rode atop vehicles. Soon enough, crews redirected quad .50s toward earthly foes, particularly as the Allies dominated the skies later in the conflict, reducing concerns over the Luftwaffe. They doubled as infantry fire support, and unleashing 4.5s on one point wrought utter havoc. The Quad .50 endured beyond the war, engaging in Korea and Vietnam too, even bolted to trucks for convoy security against raids. From World War II through today, .50 caliber operators wield immense destructive potential. Yet that power exacted a price, as adversaries would. People were eager to eliminate threats right away, no matter what. That meant the guns rapidly drew enemy notice through their unique roar, billowing smoke, and bright muzzle bursts. It's puzzling, but for years .50 caliber operators on early vehicles and tanks lacked any shielding against incoming small arms rounds. Such protections only became standard much later during the Vietnam War, and even in later conflicts, Humvees went without them until devastating casualties from snipers and city fighting forced a rethink. That's when they started building enclosed turrets, followed by remote weapon systems like the CRWS, which finally addressed the vulnerability. Today, rather than exposing your head and torso to man the machine gun, the operator controls it via joystick and video feed from inside the protected vehicle, relying on cutting-edge features such as laser rangefinders, night sights, thermal imaging, and more. These setups aren't limited to .50 calibers. They handle other machine guns and even automatic grenade launchers too. Regarding the M2 Browning, it's remarkable how it evolved from a design that seemed dubious initially into something enduring. So enduring, indeed, that it's actively deployed even now, with just subtle tweaks and enhancements to its fundamental structure from more than 100 years back. The latest notable upgrade is the M2A1 variant, featuring a better quick-change barrel, an enhanced flash hider, and a manual safety selector. Yet beyond that, it remains essentially the original gun. I mentioned something similar about the MG42, marvelling at how an ancient concept persists in updated forms today. But after digging into it for Mardis, I discovered the M2 is older still, dating straight back to the First World War, and both continue as reliable calibers and systems with no end in sight.